On our 7th wedding anniversary, my husband took our housekeeper's daughter by the hand and told me she was pregnant. The child was his. Guilt flickered across his face, thin, disposable guilt. Let's get a divorce. Chloe's pregnant. She just graduated, her life is starting. I won't let people whisper behind her back. I have to give her a name. I slapped the girl. Why him? There are millions of men in the world. Chloe's face flamed, but her voice never wavered. Serena, your family paid my tuition for years and I'm grateful. But love is selfish. I can't give up the man I love just to repay you. Besides, you and Adrian have been married all this time without a child. An empire this size can't be left without an heir. A cold laugh tore out of me. If she was so eager to dumpster dive, I'd gladly let her keep the trash. Only the empire she was eyeing for her unborn brat wasn't hers to inherit. Before we go on, please subscribe to this channel and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. Adrian asked for a divorce while I was carrying the last dish out of the kitchen. Tonight was supposed to be our 7th anniversary, just the two of us. I'd even uncorked a bottle of vintage Cabernet I'd saved for years. I never expected Chloe to show up at dinner with an anniversary cake, claiming she'd come to congratulate us. Startled, I still welcomed her warmly. As I set the final plate on the table, Adrian, sitting across from me, spoke in a low, grave voice. Stop fussing. Sit down. We need to talk. His expression was dead serious. Chloe sat so close their arms brushed. Her lips were swollen and cherry pink, a drunken flush on her cheeks, fingers restlessly twirling a porcelain spoon. The air felt wrong. Something had definitely happened while I'd been chopping and stir-frying. I wiped my hands on a paper towel, untied my apron, and joked, this formal? You'd think internal affairs called me in. Adrian's face twitched, but his tone stayed flat. Here's the thing. Gee. He cleared his throat, as if the words tasted bitter. After a long pause he said, Serena, I want a divorce. My mind went blank. Instinctively I answered, cut it out. We have company, at least save the joke for later. I blamed him for clowning around at the worst moment. My reaction made him flush. His gaze flicked to Chloe, pale and anxious beside him. He coughed again and said slowly, I know this hits you out of nowhere. I've agonized for weeks, but I can't keep hiding it. Then he drew a breath and confessed, Chloe and I are together. Thunder cracked inside my skull. You're with who? My voice shot up, shrill with disbelief. Chloe was our housekeeper's daughter. Her mother had cleaned for us for over a decade, sending every paycheck to her bedridden husband. As a kid Chloe was always grimy, stick-thin, eyes too big for her face. My parents took pity, they funded her schooling from elementary on. Then my father's textile plant collapsed. Her mother left our employ. Chloe was a college freshman by then. Dad was drowning in debt, so I kept paying her tuition until graduation. In my mind she was a timid little girl 6 years my junior, fragile as rice paper. Never once did I imagine she and Adrian would share the same orbit, let alone a bed. I stared at the two of them, stunned. Adrian looked as if he'd nailed his decision to the wall. He lifted Chloe's hand, interlacing their fingers right in front of me. Chloe found out last week, she's pregnant. The baby is mine. The overload shut my brain down, I couldn't even form a coherent thought. Adrian couldn't meet my eyes. I know this is cruel, but I won't let my child be born a bastard. We've been married 7 years and you never conceived. My mother nags me non-stop, the pressure suffocating. And Chloe's only 23. She's sacrificing her future for a married man 7 years older. I can't fail her, and I won't let the world label her a homewrecker. I'm begging you, let us go. I'll make the asset DV. Sound as generous as possible. Every sentence drove the blade deeper. We'd used protection because we'd been building the company. Then Dad's plant went under and bankruptcy liquidation swallowed us whole. One crisis after another had postponed any talk of babies, he knew all of it. Tonight I'd planned to tell him I was ready. Instead he'd handed me a surprise wrapped in barbed wire. Turns out when rage and absurdity peak, you don't scream, you laugh. Generous, huh? Exactly how much of the empire do you plan to slice off for me? After all, I'd co-built Vanstech from a garage pipe dream to a market titan. I smiled, nails carving crescents into my palms. As Adrian opened his mouth, Chloe clutched his sleeve, panic in her eyes, terrified he'd promised me too much. Tears wobbled in her voice. Adrian, why didn't you discuss this with me first? Now I look like the scheming mistress who stole her benefactor's husband. I laughed again, genuinely curious how she defined herself. Did she actually believe the cliché that the unloved wife is the real outsider? Looks like all those tuition dollars bought her an education in self-delusion, not ethics. Chloe rose, walked around the table, and dropped to her knees beside my chair. Serena, I'm sorry. You'll never forgive me, I know. Hate me, hit me, but please, Adrian's not to blame. I fell in love first, he only answered. She sobbed, tears dripping off her chin, eyes red yet glittering with triumph. Looking down at the kneeling girl who dared cry and gloat in the same breath, I swung my hand hard. The slap cracked across her cheek, my verdict on 7 years of wasted trust. I rasped, why him? Any man on earth but him. Chloe's face flamed crimson, but her voice stayed steady. Your family funded my life and I'm grateful. But love is selfish, I can't trade my heart for gratitude. And face it, Serena, you couldn't give Adrian an heir in 7 years. A fortune that size can't fall into stranger hands. I shook so violently I raised my arm for a second blow. Adrian lunged, shielding her, taking the slap on his own shoulder. He stepped back, pulling her with him, widening the distance between us. Serena, this is all my fault. Yell, hit me, do whatever you need, but leave Chloe alone. She's innocent. The sight of them carved a ragged hole straight through me. I couldn't help letting out a cold laugh. She's innocent? So what, you raped her? And she still didn't call the cops, even wants to have your baby? You two really deserve each other, scum and his cheap little tramp. Chloe's face drained from scarlet to chalk, her pale lips trembling. Adrian's eyes iced over. Serena, watch your mouth. Don't be so vicious. Chloe's pure and kind, she's nothing like you. To land orders you got blind drunk with every man in the room, let them drape their arms over you, who knows what else you let them do. If we're talking cheap, no one beats you. Poison glinted in his eyes as the words he'd buried deep burst out. My brain buzzed, every drop of blood shot to my skull. Rage wiped out reason. I snatched the tumbler off the table and hurled it at Adrian. The glass clipped his brow, hit the floor, and shattered, the crack echoing through the sudden silence like a gunshot. Each needle-sharp shard stabbed my heart, 1,000 arrows at once. Adrian, you bastard. His face went white, he knew he'd crossed the line and opened his mouth to speak. I swept every dish off the table and flung them at the pair. Get out. Both of you, get the hell out. I was shrieking. Blood beaded along Adrian's brow, he stared at my meltdown, equal parts horrified and furious. Chloe cowered behind him, stunned, both hands clutching her belly. Adrian's eyes bulged. Nutcase. You're absolutely out of your mind. I swear I don't know what I ever saw in you. Chloe's right, you're just a gutter shrew. He yanked Chloe's hand, stormed out, and slammed the door. The crash felt like a sledgehammer to my chest, knocking the wind out of me. A moment later the room sank into silence. A suffocating, crushing stillness that swallowed me whole. All strength left my legs, I collapsed into a chair. I wanted to cry, but my burning eyes stayed dry, the tears jammed inside. My mind was mush. The husband who once spoke vows sweeter than honey had ripped off his mask, and the face beneath was repulsive. The girl my family had sponsored for over a decade, who called me big sister and swore she'd be grateful all her life, behind my back she'd already rolled into bed with my husband. The memory of their laced fingers twisted my stomach until I gagged. I needed to scream, to roar, yet my throat felt corked, not a sound escaped. My heart knotted so tight my teeth chattered. In the end I'd misjudged them both. We'd survived countless grueling nights together, climbing from nothing to the glittering top. I could still see us in that cramped office, still see me juggling every extra task to cut costs. Yet now he held another woman's hand and told me she was pregnant. My heart hurt. Every bone and vein hurt. When we married, the company was newborn, nobody in the market took us seriously. We had to pound every pavement ourselves. My family's little plant made clothing for export, no help at all to a software startup. My dad's contacts didn't stretch into tech. Adrian was born proud, he couldn't stomach glad-handing clients. So I hit the road while he minded code and servers. For years I drank on the job. Some sleazy buyers, just to watch a woman squirm, would order me to drain the baijiu in front of them. But I could hold my liquor, better than most men. Most people in business show basic respect, but there's always trash who use drunk as an excuse to paw a woman. Once in a while, bruised by it, I'd whine to Adrian. He would hug me, eyes red, swearing he'd never let me down. I never dreamed those whimpered complaints would boomerang and spear me in the back. The reek of food hovered, thick sauce crawled across the floor to my shoe. I didn't move. A shrill ring sliced through my thoughts, my mother-in-law. I glanced at the screen, Dolores. It rang, stopped, rang again, 3 cycles. I finally flicked accept. Her irritated voice barked, Serena, what's with you? I've been calling forever. What do you want? I was hollow. Tomorrow is your father's rehab therapy day. Don't forget, be there early. Same lofty tone, same issuing orders cadence. Harold had a brain tumor removed 2 years ago. Nerve damage left his left side weak and his speech slurred. He still needs rehab twice a week. Adrian took him the first 2 sessions. For the past 2 years it's been me. Dolores does nothing but mahjong and line dancing. We've burned through a parade of aides, she's so impossible they quit within weeks. In the end I ferry him myself, twice weekly hospital rehab, 3 trips a week to the TCM clinic for massage and acupuncture. He's improving, short distances without a cane. I'm busy tomorrow, afternoon tea with a friend, I said flat out. She exploded, tea is more important than your father-in-law's therapy? What kind of daughter-in-law are you? She never used to speak like that, she even flattered me once. But after Dad's textile plant went into bankruptcy liquidation 3 years ago, she decided my family was useless and she now lived off her son's glory. When I stayed silent she ratcheted the volume. Whatever you've got tomorrow, cancel it. Take your father to therapy first, tea can wait. Her tone was pure command. I inhaled, then roared, stop barking your father, my father's surname is Vance, not Vance. Legally only Adrian owes you support. At best I'm a relative by marriage, and the moment I divorce him that thread is cut, then what do you think you are to me? She choked. Her voice quivered with fury. Serena, you just wait, this isn't over. She slammed the phone down. I powered the handset off. I sat amid the wreckage all night. Irony tasted bitter. What was meant as a 7th wedding anniversary tea Oast became the backdrop to our marriage's funeral. At dawn I phoned the building's cleaning crew. I washed, pulled on a dress, and was heading out to my parents when Adrian walked in. He stormed straight at me, livid. Serena, have you no upbringing? My mother is your elder, how dare you speak to her like that? My mind spun through the last few minutes. I couldn't recall saying anything truly vile about his mother. I didn't have time for his tantrum. I walked straight to the foyer, grabbed my purse and car keys. He blocked me with an outstretched arm. You're coming with me right now to apologize to my mother. I shoved his hand away. Get lost. Then I pulled my high heels from the shoe cabinet. Adrian wouldn't let up, he locked his fingers around my arm. Serena, the divorce is between the two of us. Don't take it out on my parents. They've always treated you like their own daughter. Come to their house with me and apologize, sincerely. Worked like a mule and still told I'm like a daughter. So this is how they treat a daughter in their family. Fury surged, ready to erupt. I snatched one heel and aimed the stiletto at his forehead. I'll count to 3, let go. 1, 2, before the 3 left my mouth. Just as I raised my arm to strike, Adrian flung my arm aside and jumped back. He stared at me, rattled. You're insane, are you out of your mind? A shrew like you, I'm divorcing you. I composed my face and spoke each word clearly. Fine. I want 70% of the assets. Impossible. Adrian shot back. On what grounds? Out of guilt I'd give you half. Take it or leave it. Otherwise we battle it out in court. I studied the man I now loathed. So granting me half was already his generous concession. All right. I'll see you there. I picked up my bag and keys, slammed the door, and left. I drove to my parents' house. No one was home. Lately I'd been swamped. I hadn't visited in over 2 weeks. I called Dad and learned Mom had been hospitalized, pneumonia brought on by tea. He flew. They hadn't told me, afraid I'd worry. I sped to the hospital. In the parking lot I ran into my in-laws. My father-in-law slouched in a wheelchair, head cocked. When he saw me, his eyes flashed with something like resentment, as if he meant to scold me. I was dumbstruck. For more than 2 years I'd chauffeured this old man to hospitals and acupuncture clinics 5 days a week while his wife and son ignored him. One missed trip and now I'm the villain. No surprise, apples don't fall far from the tree, the whole bunch are ingrates. Mother-in-law folded her arms and sniffed. So, finally scared and here to apologize? Get on your knees, admit you were wrong, and maybe, just maybe, Harold and I will forgive you. Otherwise, don't dream of setting foot in the Vance estate again. As if I cherished walking through their gates. I kept my face blank, rolled my eyes, and said, if something's wrong with your brain, today's the perfect day to have it checked. Stop making a scene. I turned toward the elevator lobby. She cracked. Her shrieks followed me down the corridor. Minutes later Adrian phoned. I blacklisted the number. No prizes for guessing, his mother had run tattling again. I wasn't in the mood for his lectures. Once, he'd been my husband, for the sake of our marriage I'd tolerated his parents. Now he was just a cheating ex who still expected me to kowtow to them. The elevator shot to the 12th floor, to Mom's ward. The sight of her made my nose sting. Mom, why didn't you tell me you were sick? You've made me feel horrible. She smiled and patted my hand. Telling you would only give you one more thing to worry about. The hospital is excellent, and the pneumonia isn't serious. I've been on 4 fluids a few days and I'm already better. Tears spilled before I could stop them. It had to be worse than she admitted. She was noticeably thinner, face drawn. Dad's stubble said he'd been camping here. Making an excuse to pick up supplies, I slipped out and found the office. The doctor explained, a large irregular polyp had shown up on Mom's lung scan. They'd removed it, biopsy confirmed early-stage lung cancer. He added that treatment was already planned and urged me to keep her spirits up and her nutrition balanced to help her recover. I crouched in the stairwell and cried for a long time. I hadn't even known my own mother was ill. Only Dad had stayed through her surgery and hospital days. Yet in my married life I'd played nursemaid to Adrian's father. What had 7 years of marriage given me? I dried my face and returned to the ward, pretending nothing was wrong. I stayed at the hospital the next several days. Mom kept urging me to go home. Your father's here, that's enough. You're a married woman, Adrian will be upset if you're never home. I didn't want to announce the impending divorce yet, so I simply said everything at home was handled and my job now was to look after her. I never imagined Adrian would bring Chloe straight to Mom's room. Somehow they'd learned the ward number. When they walked in hand, I froze. Mom looked stricken. Adrian tried to yank his hand free, but Chloe held on with both of hers. I hissed at him and shoved them toward the door. Whatever it is, we talk at home. Don't disturb my mother here. Chloe lifted her chin. Divorce isn't a dirty word. I'm unmarried and not ashamed, why should you be? She raised her voice deliberately. I growled, Adrian, get your girlfriend out of here or I'm calling security. Chloe refused to budge. I came to ask one thing. Why do you think you deserve 70% of the marital property? Adrian runs the company, you're just a housewife. Everything you wear and eat is paid for by him. On what grounds do you claim so much? You think he's an easy mark, but I won't let you get away with it. She sounded like the wronged wife confronting the homewrecker. From the bed Mom's voice quavered, Serena, you're divorcing Adrian? I pleaded softly, Adrian, Chloe, my mother just had surgery. She can't handle stress. Let's talk outside. Just then Dad strode out of the room. His eyes swept over the three of us scuffling in the corridor, and he grasped the situation instantly. He fixed Chloe with a piercing stare. She shrank back and quickly unclenched her fingers from my sleeve. My father's eyes were filled with disappointment and cold heartbreak. After all, Chloe was someone my family had sponsored for more than a decade, and now she had become the other woman in my marriage. His voice was as cold as frost. Is this how your parents taught you to be a human being? Ungrateful and shameless. Chloe's body trembled. When she met my father's gaze, her face flushed crimson with shame. She muttered a weak defense, Uncle, you can't force feelings. Adrian and I love each other. I haven't done anything wrong. As for the money you spent supporting me, I'll pay it all back, every cent. My father gave 2 cold snorts and ignored her. Instead, he turned to me. What are you going to do? His voice was still icy, but his eyes were full of heartache. I gave a bitter laugh. His mistress is pregnant and threw it in my face. What else can I do but divorce him? My father asked again, how will you divide the assets? I said, I'm asking for 70% of the marital property. My father nodded, perfectly reasonable. I put up the startup capital in the first place, giving him 30% as charity. Chloe cried out, on what grounds? That's Adrian's company. What right do you have to take 70%? My father shot her another razor-sharp look. She shut her mouth, unwilling, but still sulking under her breath. My father raised his hand and slapped her hard across the face. You're worse than an animal. This slap is on behalf of your mother. Since she doesn't know how to discipline her daughter, I'll do it for her. Chloe stood frozen in terror. Adrian immediately stepped forward and pulled Chloe behind him. Dad, let's talk this through. What kin? Dia behavior is hitting? Though his tone was questioning, his voice was as small as a mosquito's. He had always feared and respected my father, at least a little. Once upon a time, to marry me, he had bowed and scraped in front of my father, eager to please. Later, after our wedding, my father had handed over $3 million as startup capital for the company. Back then Adrian had practically knelt to kowtow in gratitude. My father's voice carried absolute authority. Adrian, considering you were once my daughter's husband, I don't want to make this uglier than it has to be. Take 30% and get lost. Otherwise I'll spend every last dollar. I still have to make sure you never know another moment's peace. You know I follow through on my words. At worst we both go down in flames, but I will never let you bully my daughter. Tears stung my eyes, they swam but did not fall. Adrian's face turned ashen. Finally he clenched his jaw and nodded. He knew exactly what my father meant. My father added, bring the divorce papers by tomorrow at the latest. If you try any tricks in that contract, you'll regret it. He paused, then continued, oh, and Hayes just said she'd repay every cent I ever spent on her. Tomorrow I'll give her a detailed statement. Fortunately I kept the books. Chloe swayed, barely able to stay upright. Adrian caught her in time to keep her from collapsing. 1 month later, Adrian and I signed the divorce decree. According to the settlement, we split the assets. Adrian wanted the company. He negotiated to swap every other asset he owned for my shares. Of course I agreed. I only cared about securing my 70%. He scraped cash from every corner and borrowed more than 10 million to buy me out. By then 3 months had passed since the divorce. Adrian was renting a resettlement apartment, waiting for company profits so he could rise again. I used part of my settlement to buy a new villa. I thought I'd spend a painful transition period after the divorce, but there was simply too much to do. I didn't even have time to grieve. I took my parents traveling. When we returned I decorated the villa, planted flowers and grass. Every day brought new tasks. Time flew, half a year was gone in a blink. At year's end, Chloe gave birth to boy-girl twins. I didn't seek the news out, but Adrian threw a massive banquet and staged 2 nights of block party celebrations at the gate of their complex, hiring a lion dance troupe and internet celebrities to drum up attention. Half the city knew. The news stirred no ripples in me. I was busy planning my own company. After talking it over with my father, I decided to revive his old trade. I would open Serena Wear, a thermal underwear factory, plus a yoga apparel line. That way we'd have year-round sales. This time we would focus on the domestic market. My father had decades of factory management experience and garment production know-how. I hired him as my production consultant. I poached 2 young, talented designers at top industry salaries. I built a sales team. One group handled e-commerce, the other brick and mortar. Offline staff hit the road to secure deals with supermarkets and chain stores. Online, we supplied anchors and other e-commerce companies. We skipped retail and focused on wholesale and dropshipping. Because we knew the ropes, the plant ran smoothly. Although each order might be only tens of thousands instead of the hundreds of thousands Adrian's software firm once pulled in, food and clothing are daily necessities. Run well, the business would flow like a steady stream. Another winter arrived. Thanks to a wave of influencer endorsements, our thermals suddenly exploded in popularity. E-commerce stores were swamped with new orders. Workers clocked in 3 shifts, sewing machines smoked from dawn to dusk. Just before Chinese New Year, a friend dropped by the factory to pick thermal sets as gifts for relatives. After choosing, we drank gongfu tea in my office. Chatting, she mentioned Adrian's father had died 2 days earlier. Let me tell you, she said, the old man's room stank to high heaven. I was shocked. Though he'd suffered nerve damage and couldn't move well, his general health had been stable. How could he be gone so fast? She explained, bedsores rotted right down to the bone. He died in agony. Adrian dumped him at home and fetched his mother to look after Chloe and the twins. His mom stocks the fridge once a week and leaves his dad to heat the meals himself. At first the old man could still shuffle around. Later he couldn't get out of bed and lay there wailing from hunger. Then one day he went quiet. Neighbors called the cops. By the time officers broke in, he was dead and the place reeked. It was horrifying. She wasn't finished, that's not even the worst. Before the body was cold, Adrian's mom had already lined up her next man. She'd been waiting for her husband to die. She's had a boyfriend for 2 years. I remembered the 2 years after Adrian's father fell ill. His mother had ignored him, dressing to the nines and staying out all night. Probably she'd already found someone new. I guess Adrian takes after her. I listened, then let it go. The life or death of my ex-husband's family had nothing to do with me. 2 months later Adrian came to see me. The factory guard didn't recognize him. He claimed he was here to view products, registered at the gate, and walked in. He showed up at my office. I was in the middle of a meeting with my designer about the spring-summer yoga apparel line. When I spotted him hovering at the door, sneaking glances like a thief, I snapped, "What are you doing here?" Adrian immediately plastered on a fawning smile. I told the designer to take the sketches back for one more revision, I'd find her later. He walked the designer out, then shut the door. I stared at him, ice cold. The once dashing man now looked haggard, his shirt a crumpled mess. "Serena, I came to ask a favor. I'd make a sound." He gave an awkward chuckle and kept talking. My company's in trouble. Several big contracts expire next month and they're not renewing. They've switched to another software company. Could you reach out to them for me? I'm willing to drop our price another 10%. So that was his brilliant plan. You can negotiate with them yourself. What does any of this have to do with me? I said, voice dripping with sarcasm. Regret flashed across his face. Last year I offended 2 of the project leads. The market's been brutal. They wanted a 10% fee cut and I flat out refused. Now their contracts are up and they're walking. I don't know how it happened, but the rest of the big accounts are following suit, all expiring, none renewing. I didn't think it would come to this. If I'd known, I would have given them the 10%. Those clients were originally yours. Could you talk to them for me? I'll agree to the discount now. And don't worry, once it's done, your cut will be generous. Utter fool. Over the past 2 years, most software service firms had voluntarily slashed prices. His company didn't own any irreplaceable systems the way the international giants did. What exactly was he so proud of? I smiled faintly. Hope ignited in his eyes. I said pleasantly, Vance, if you came to order thermal underwear, I'd be delighted. Anything else is off the table. What you just described has nothing to do with me. I'm amazed you had the nerve to ask. Recalling the insults he'd once hurled at me, I reminded him, after all, chasing people to beg for business is a despicable thing to do. Those were your exact words. Why on earth would I stoop to that? Adrian looked close to tears. I had no patience for his act. I called security and had him thrown out. After he left, I opened the order report my hired CEO had sent and laughed out loud. Long before my apparel factory stabilized, I'd partnered with a friend to register a new software company. My name never appeared on the shareholder list. Its services overlapped almost entirely with Vanceteca's. Over the past 2 years I'd poached several of his best engineers, one by one. Those expiring contracts? I'd already siphoned most of them to my own firm. Now he wanted me to negotiate on his behalf? That would mean persuading my own clients to stay with my competitor. Vance Tech filed for bankruptcy liquidation 2 years later. Government seals went on the doors. Even the office desks and chairs were hauled away by the creditors. By then I'd begun a new relationship. He was a university physics professor, also on his second marriage. His ex-wife had stayed on at an overseas research institute, taken a green card, and remarried a foreign colleague. A mutual friend introduced us. He was shy yet hilarious, 2 traits that sound contradictory until you spend 5 minutes with him, then they fit perfectly. We didn't talk a lot day to day. He was buried in research, I was running my factories, but whenever he had vacation days I cleared my calendar and we traveled, just the 2 of us. 2 years into our marriage I got pregnant. On the morning of my prenatal checkup, my husband and I ran into Adrian and Chloe in the hospital corridor. They were chasing an ambulance gurney, sobbing as they ran. On it lay a little boy, about 5, covered in blood. The gurney shot straight into the emergency room. When the door slammed shut, the 2 of them collapsed on the floor, wailing. After my own scan, I overheard nurses talking. A 5-year-old had fallen from a balcony and been pronounced dead on arrival. I flashed back to the blood-soaked child Adrian and Chloe had pushed past me. Could it have been their son? Only later did I learn the whole story. They said Chloe and Adrian's mom were addicted to mahjong. To keep their game uninterrupted, they locked the 2 children inside the apartment. There was nothing to eat. By afternoon the kids were so hungry they went looking for their mother, but no one. He answered the phone. The little boy remembered a TV show where a kid slid down a tree from an upper floor. He decided to copy it. Their condo was on the 4th story, a big tree stood just outside the window. His little sister dragged over a stool. He climbed onto the balcony ledge. His foot slipped. He plunged 4 stories down. The girl leaned halfway out the window, screaming, "Brother, brother," until neighbors noticed. Someone called 911, the door was pried open. They found the boy in the bushes and dialed 120, then reached Adrian and Chloe. I sat speechless for a long time after hearing the details. A bright, living child, extinguished by their negligence. I remembered the lavish celebration when the twins were born. Now this ending, how could anyone not weep? Later, Adrian and Chloe divorced. The daughter's custody went to Adrian. After their son's death, Chloe slipped into a kind of waking stupor, constantly wandering off to find her boy. Adrian threw his own mother out of the house, forever banished. She ran to an old flame, but his grown children got wind of it and forbade the relationship. The 2 sneaked off to a hotel. The man's daughter burst in and caught them red-handed. She flung Dolores's clothes out the window. Hotel staff finally scavenged 2 forgotten garments so she could leave. After that scandal, she disappeared. No one knows where she went. Roughly 2 years later, I spotted Adrian once on the street. My husband was carrying our daughter. I had my arm linked through his, heading to a baby gear store. Adrian came toward us. His mouth opened, about to greet me. I kept chatting with my husband, cooing at our little girl. I didn't spare him a glance. Behind me I thought I heard a muffled sob, but it was lost beneath my daughter's bright giggles. I didn't turn around. My happiness lies ahead. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the story, please like and share it with friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more tales. See you next time.